Hello everybody, Royal Rapids here, and welcome to my first ever hardcore Nuzlocke here on the channel. Now, I've done challenge videos before, but this one's a little different. So, obviously, the Nuzlocke rules are, they're pretty basic. You have to catch the first Pokemon that you find on every route. So, let's say on Route 1, if I were doing a normal Nuzlocke and I found a Zigzagoon, I'd have to catch it. Then you have to nickname all of your Pokemon, which I will be doing, and obviously if a Pokemon faints, it's gone. But my additional rules here is that you have the gym leader / Elite Four level cap. So for example, let's say that in the first gym I have a Mudkip, and obviously Roxanne's Nose Pass is level 15. I cannot level my Mudkip past level 15, or else I'm not able to use it in the gym battle, which I obviously don't want to do, because Mudkip is pretty great for the first gym. And in this case, I'm using water-type Pokemon only, since it's obviously a Sapphire Hardcore Nuzlocke with water types only. And I'm using Species Clause as well, so I'm allowed to reroll encounters until I find a unique water type, which makes things a lot more interesting. So without further ado, let's get right into this, and we spam through that Birch monologue. Put in our name Anthony, because that is my name. If you did not watch the Fire Red Nuzlocke, don't, because I'm never finishing it. And we end up in a moving truck, child abuse at its finest. Anyways, here we are on Route 101, and we go to pick Mudkip, obviously the only water-type starter available. We knock out that Zigzagoon like it's nothing, and we nickname him Kip. Why? Because I'm not creative. But nonetheless, I have to end up resetting, because Kip had a pretty bad nature, so I reset quite a few times until I get a Brave nature, which is plus attack minus speed, which is pretty good for a Swampert. Ultimately, I'm happy with that, so we go up to fight May here on Route 103, I believe, and we barely survived with 1 HP. I actually lost a previous attempt here. Now, catching our first Pokemon, we run into a Lotad, which is the only water type available on the route. We pick her up and we name her Lily because of the lily pad on her head. Now we got our next water type encounter, which is a Wingull, which we catch in 1 Pokeball, and we go on to name him Rick. Why? I have no idea, and it's taking me forever to type this in for some reason. But we head over to Petalburg Woods, we take on the Team Aqua Grunt, and defeat his Poochyena with a few water guns, and we get the Great Ball from the Weenie Hut Jr. Devin guy. Now here we are in Roxanne's gym. Should be pretty easy since we have 3 water types, and Kip is basically able to solo the entire gym with a bunch of water guns, earning us our first Hoenn gym badge. And we don't learn Bide because that's bad for a Nuzlocke challenge. Then we go in here into the Rust Turf Tunnel to take on the other Aqua Grunt, and Rick beats up his Poochyena. Now Mr. Briney's going to bring us down here to Dewford Town, which we catch our next 2 encounters, a Magikarp, which we name Goat, because he will be very, very important later in the run once we evolve into a Gyarados, and a Tentacool named Jelly, who you'll see down the road might even be more important. Kip evolves into Marshtomp while we are training, and learns Mudshot, a very clutch ground-type move. And we go on to face Brawly with our new Lombre and Marshtomp. Should be pretty easy. I mean, we're neutral against each other, and we have Rick for those wing attacks. Rick basically just out-wing attacks the Machop, barely hangs on, and Kip comes in to take care of Makuhita a couple mud shots later, and we have earned our second Hoenn gym badge. Down to the Devon Corporation, we were able to pick up the experience share, which is going to be really clutch in this challenge, especially when we have to replace team members. We put that on Goat the Magikarp, that way we can train him up easier. Now over here in the Oceanic Museum, we take on a few Aqua Grunts, and Kip absolutely annihilates the Zubats and Carvanas with his water guns and mud shots, breaking through Supersonics like it's nothing. Kip been the MVP so far, as Archie comes in and says he wants to flood the earth for some reason, despite him being a human. Nonetheless, we train a little bit, Goat evolves into Gyarados, and we go to take on the infamous May rival battle, which is known as a Nuzlocke killer. Ultimately, we have a Gyarados, and he's able to pretty much get through this Wailmer, which does nothing but use Splash. Next up is Numel, 4 times weak to water-type attacks. Rick takes care of that like it's nothing. And we stay in against this Grovyle, almost it's Sceptile, and wing attacks to get the job done. Ultimately, very easy, no deaths. Now we go to face Wally, who at this point in the run is an absolute weenie. If he's doing a Nuzlocke, he just wiped out and has to restart, because that was his only Pokemon. Then we go to take on Watson, which would be a challenge, but we have a Marshtomp. I actually wiped a previous attempt on him because I lost my Marshtomp early. Ultimately, a couple Mudshots get the job done, and we now have 3 Hoenn gym badges. Now here in the Rust Turf Tunnel, we pick up the HM4 Strength, and we teach that to Goat because he has literally no moves. Mount Chimney, we have our first Archie boss battle. He lives up for the Mightyena. Lily almost gets taken down, so we have to switch into Kip, who lands a couple mud shots and gets the job done. Ultimately, out comes Golbat next, so we switch right over to Goat, our Gyarados, get the Intimidate off. And he gets hit in Confusion a bunch of times, but ultimately we hit a Strength, switch back to Kip. He heals up with a Super Potion. And we have to switch all the way back into Rick. Ultimately, we have to put some abuse switches in this because he's kind of wrecking us right now. Out comes the Sharpedo, who is quite underleveled, which is key to most Pokemon games. Every boss will have an underleveled Pokemon to make it a little harder for you. Ultimately, we land a Supersonic, hit a couple Acids, and Jelly hangs on to earn us the win against Archie. Then he blabs, Maxie comes, tells us that he hates Team Aqua. Rick evolves into a Pelipper, training before the 4th gym, and ultimately now we go to take on Flannery, which should be an easy challenge in theory, but you'll see it definitely isn't. Goat, couple Dragon Rages gets the job done. Slugma, same thing, and out comes the big one, Torkoal. Goat has to switch into Kip, and Kip, you think, oh, he's a water and ground type, he can get the job done, but no. Torkoal lands an Overheat, boosted by the sun, and we lose our first team member of the run. Very unfortunate, but the run has to go on. Rick comes out, takes a couple hits, barely survives, and lands a Water Gun to defeat the Torkoal. But ultimately, it's quite sad as we have to deposit Kip into the PC. We get the TM for Overheat, which does nothing. And, yeah, sadly enough, we lose our first team member, and it happens to be our very own starter, Kip the Marshtomp. We take the soft stand off of him, and we had to move on to gym number 5. Ultimately, the run must go on. We hit a fake out on a Meryl west of Verdant Turf Town, and we get our next Pokemon. We decide to name him Jeff, and Jeff is actually quite special because of its ability, as you will see in a second. Jeff has the ability Huge Power, which raises your attack massively, and makes a Azumarill from a mediocre Pokemon to actually a very quality Pokemon. After a little bit of training, we evolve it, and we also evolve Jelly into a Tentacruel since our level cap has raised. Now, up against our in-game father, here's Norman. He leads up with a Slacking, and we have to ponder out what to do here. We hit a Leer, and since he loafs around every other turn, I decided to come up with a strategy where I teach Protect to Rick, and just allow him to protect every turn, slacking attacks, and just slowly chip away at his health. I used a PP up on Protect to give it 12 PP instead of 10, and ultimately, as you can see here, we are basically just forced to slowly stall out Slacking. He's going to use his Hyper Potions, but we're luckily able to outlast him long enough to get the KO. Now out comes Vigoroth, which does not have the Truant ability, so we decide to switch out here back into Goat, get the Intimidate off, and just hit a couple Dragon Rages after he heals up. Ultimately, we end up having to switch into Jelly, who can tank some hits, and one Bubble Beam later, down goes the Vigoroth. Now Slacking again, we land a Supersonic, switch into Rick, and do the Protect strategy once again. He's confused, he loafs around, and ultimately Rick is able to have enough Protect PP to slowly but surely stall out the Slacking, and sooner or later, finally earn our 5th Hoenn Gym Badge. We had just enough Protect PP, and ultimately, we're over halfway done with this challenge, believe it or not. But then, we have to go head over to Wally's parents' house, who give us the HM for Surf, which we teach to literally everyone, because it's a very good Water-type move. Ultimately, the run must go on, so after surfing east of Mauville City, we pick up the Good Rod and go to get our next encounter, which is a Carvanha. Carvanha is one of my personal favorite Pokemon. You know, I like the Water and Dark type. It's a cool Pokemon, and I decide, for some godforsaken reason, to name it Fortnite. Don't ask me why. I was already playing for a while at this point in the challenge. I'd already had a few resets, and I was kind of brain dead. So, we're going to be stuck with a Sharpedo named Fortnite. So anyways, at the Weather Institute, we take on Aqua Admin Shelly, and now we hit a couple of rollouts with Jeff with his Huge Power. Almost sweeps through the entire team. Ultimately, we have to go for Lily, who can't quite take out the Mighty Anna with a Bullet Seed, but an Absorb gets the job done. And now for the rival battle with May. I forgot to record us walking up to her, but ultimately Goat destroys the Numel. Now Lily's in against Wailmer, and a Bullet Seed will get the job done, 2 of them that is. Next out comes Grovyle. I think about switching, but for some reason I go for Fake Out. The misclick cost me a team member, and Lily's the second one to go down. Ultimately she was the weakest link, so I'm not too mad about it, and now we can get Fortnite on the team. But Goat finishes it out with a couple Dragon Rages. We get the HM4 Fly, which I will not teach to Rick. And we go to fish for our next encounter, which is a Barboach, which will be Kip's replacement. And we name him Dollar, because get it? Whis Cash? Yeah, not the best name in the world, but hey, whatever, it works. And we go to the Mauville Game Corner, spend a ridiculous amount of money to get the HM for Ice Beam. The TM for Ice Beam, my bad. to help deal with Winona's flying types. We put that right on our trusty Tentacruel Jelly, because at the moment she has literally been our team MVP. She can tank hits, and we decide to get rid of Poison Sting and replace that with Ice Beam. A little bit of training later, and Fortnite becomes a Sharpedo. Should be useful in the next challenge. But ultimately, weirdly enough, she has a higher special attack than attack, probably due to Natures and IVs. So here in Winona's gym battle, we land a couple Surfs here to take out the Swellow. Ultimately comes in Pelipper, and we switch to our own Pelipper, who we taught Shockwave, and it gets the one-shot due to being 4 times effective. A couple Shockwaves take out the Skarmory, and we decided to teach Amnesia to Dollar, because why not? Pelipper, Shockwave does nothing, we switch into Jelly, and due to it being 4 times effective, Ice Beam takes out the Altaria, and we earn our 6th gym badge. We head over to Mount Pyre, we learn some lore stuff from Archie, and we get the Blue Orb, to then take on May in Lily Cove City, the final rival battle of the game. And Ice Beam takes out Swellow, Surf takes out Numel. We end up trying to just stall out Wailmer here, who kind of sucks. We get a lucky freeze, and then a couple Surfs later, down goes the Wailmer. Ultimately comes out Grovyle, 2 Ice Beams to get the job done, and Jelly has been by far our team MVP. I cannot complain in the slightest. Now here we are taking on Aqua Admin Matt in the Aqua Hideout, and yeah, we just pretty much take him out pretty handily. We get a clutch Ice Beam freeze there with Jelly, and Acid gets the job done. And out comes the Mighty Enna, which for some reason, I don't know why evil teams love having dark types so much, but hey, it is what it is. We beat Aqua Admin Matt, and we get told the location of Archie underneath the water. Ultimately, after training on a random trainer, Dollar evolves into a Whiscash, and we go to meet Steven here in Moss Deep City, getting the HM for Dive. Someone has to take a hit, even though it's a horrible move, and I decided to teach it to Dollar, as he hasn't really been battling for us anyways, and he has Magnitude and Surf. So ultimately, we can deal with it. We go to pick up the Super Rod, which can get us a few more encounters, and we eventually encounter a Wailmer. Something I really don't want to use, because Wailord, pure water type, bulky, but ultimately I already have Jelly for the bulk. I name it Boy, because I hope I never have to see this thing in battle, and if I do, that's kind of a bro moment. Ultimately, we go to take on Tate and Liza, which in this game are very easy, since they only have 2 Pokemon, and we come out, hit the double Surfs that all our Pokemon know. Ultimately, we end up switching Rick and Jelly go for those double Surfs, take out Solrock and Lunatone, and we earn our 7th Hoenn Gym badge. Now, as we head into the Seafloor Cavern, we do a couple puzzles, and we run into Aqua Admin Shelly once again, who leads with the Sharpedo. Ultimately, this shouldn't be too difficult of a battle, as we lead with Jelly, land a couple stab Surfs, even though Sharpedo is resisted by it. Ultimately, he has poor special defense, so we one-shot the Mighty Enna as well, and head into Kyogre's chamber. Archie comes in and goes to challenge us one last time. Out comes the Mighty Enna. And Jelly being Jelly, despite her being underleveled, beats that Mighty Enna. In comes the Crobat. Couple Ice Beams later, and the job gets done. She barely hangs on with only 5 HP, but that's how much of a tank she is. Ultimately, now we gotta switch out, and we go into Goat the Gyarados, whose moveset still kind of sucks, to be honest with you, but his high attack stat, a couple strengths, takes out Sharpedo, and he barely hangs on, too. Archie's Red Orb makes Kyogre mad. I don't know what he would think. Kyogre's clearly blue. But ultimately, Archie's stupid. He wants to flood the world despite not being able to live in the ocean. Hey, not me. Ultimately, the world's now flooding due to the rain, and by the world, it's just like 3 cities. If you go anywhere else, that's not like Lily Cove, Moss Deep, or Zootopolis. It's completely fine. But hey, who am I to judge? Underwater, we run into our next encounter, a Clamperl. I'm not using this thing. I don't care if I run out of all teammates and I have to solo it with just one Pokemon. I'm not using this Clamperl. So I just name it a stupid name, Fish. Because I am not using this thing. I don't care what anyone says. Neither Huntail nor Gorabis are worth my time. I literally didn't even want to nickname it because of how little I wanted to use this thing. There are a few more encounters I can get, and ultimately we go into Zootopolis here. Wallace and Steven, the 2 champions of Hoenn, tell us to go in here. And we stumble around in the dark because Lily was my only Pokemon that could learn Flash, and she's been long dead at this point. Rest in peace, Lily the Lombre. Ultimately, after fumbling around long enough, we run into a wild Sableye, which we can't catch because there's no water-type encounters here. And we slowly but surely make our way through this cavern, and we pick up the HM for Waterfall, which is a pretty good physical water move in later generations because this is Gen 3. It's still a special move, so it's literally just Surf with a flinch chance. Ultimately, wow, it's Kyogre we just run because we can't use it. It's a hardcore Nuzlocke. Now, here's Wallace, another water-type trainer. He'd be the champion if this was Emerald, but ultimately this is Sapphire, so he's not the champion. Fortnite almost gets one shot here by an earthquake, but he hangs on barely. In comes the Celio. We go for Jeff. We try to get a rollout combo going, which we do. Ultimately, up against a Seeking, one of the weaker Pokemon in existence. I could care less about Seeking. Ultimately, Jeff, I don't know why I clicked rollout, and we lose our third team member of the run. Rest in peace, Jeff. You were a clutch Pokemon. Huge power Azumarill, but in Gen 3, that's really not all that useful, unfortunately, due to all water-type moves being special. We literally freeze this Milotic twice, I believe, in this run, and it just keeps instantly thawing and then using Recover. Milotic is a very, a very annoying Pokemon to deal with. It's very bulky, and it gets access to Recover. And it's hard to deal with, but ultimately we get in Dollar, who gets a couple clutch Earthquakes, bring it down to below half. And Goat is able to get a couple Dragon Rages and Strengths off to earn us our 8th Hoenn Gym badge. But not without casualty, as we do lose Jeff the Azumarill. If it was a Gen 4 or 5 challenge, or any later challenge, I guess, he would have been a lot more useful. But ultimately, he's our third team member lost. But in Lily Cove City, we get an encounter, and we use a Super Rod to fish up a Staryu, which I'm putting all of my faith in, because Starmie is a pretty amazing Pokemon. We name it Hoshi, fellow weebs, stand up. It has the ability Natural Cure, which is a godsend, because it could have had Illuminate, which is literally the worst ability in the game. It makes wild Pokemon appear more. Ultimately, we head to the abandoned ship to get the TM for Ice Beam, which I know we got earlier, but we get a free one here, and we give that to our Staryu, which I am literally putting all my faith in. As I said, we're literally running around the Hoenn region to get at TMs and other things. Later on in the ship, we end up getting a Water Stone as well, which we obviously give to the Starmie, which we can't give to Ludicolo because unfortunately Lily already died. So yeah, then we head to the power plant as well, which not great for a team of water types, but Dollar handles all the electrodes that we run into. And ultimately we go to meet with Watson, who will give us the TM for Thunderbolt after we escape rope, head back to Mauville City, and we go to teach Thunderbolt to our now trusty Starmie. Like I said, we are putting all our faith in for this Elite Four run. Not the best idea, but Starmie has potential to be great. So we have to go to the move deleter here to delete all unnecessary HMs that we don't really care about and replace them with other good moves. Like we're going to replace Goat's Surf with Waterfall because we need a Waterfall Pokemon, and I would not mind having the Flinch chance. Ultimately, that would be even better if it was Gen 4 because we get that physical special split. But we end up heading to Pacific Log Town to get the TM for Return. Ultimately, it should be a good move. I mean, since none of our Pokemon have died, they should have max happiness. So it's a base 102 normal type physical attack, since all normal type moves are physical. As we climb the waterfall and head into Victory Road, which wasn't really that bad. We teach Hoshi Flash for the time being. Now we face Wally. We're a little underleveled for him, but Altaria goes down to a few Ice Beams. Now in comes his ace Gardevoir, who has bad physical defense. One Earthquake takes him down. In comes the Roselia, who we go into Rick. An Aerial Ace or two gets the job done. In comes Magneton, which we now switch into Dollar. Does not have Levitate, as I used to think when I was a kid, and we take it down with one Earthquake. After a Charm, we've struggled to land a few Earthquakes. We go to sleep, and we then switch into Jelly, who lands a Stab Surf, taking down the Delcatty and defeating Trainer Wally, as we can now head into the Elite Four, after we painstakingly grinded everyone to level 55, which is the level cap of Drake. Looked through everyone's movesets. We went through, deleted all the bad moves, taught in good moves, and ultimately, after all this, we should be ready to take on the Elite Four. I personally think it shouldn't be that bad. I mean, we have a diverse move pool, a lot of bulky Pokemon, Dragon Dance on Gyarados, and without further ado, let's get into it. It's Elite Four time. We're going to take on Sydney, the Dark-type Elite Four member. Ultimately, here in these hardcore Nuzlockes, the first Elite Four member is always like 10 levels below you. So Dollar comes in, hits a couple Earthquakes, takes out the Mightyena, but fails to take out Cacturne. An Ice Beam from Hoshi does the job done. In comes Sharpedo, and we hit a Thunderbolt, taking it out in one shot. Now in comes the Absol. Hoshi almost goes down, but manages to hang on, which is clutch, as Jelly comes out, finishes out Absol, and also the Shift Tree with a couple Ice Beams. Clutch Freeze takes over, and one more Aerial Ace takes down the Shift Tree. I don't even know why I switched there. Now for Phoebe, the Ghost-type trainer, leads off with the Dusclops, who always goes for a Protect, but doesn't this time for some reason. Kills itself with a Curse, and out comes Bayonet. Fortnite comes in, lands a crunch, kills the Bayonet. Hoshi goes level 56. Fortnite comes in a couple crunches, takes out the Sableye, and another Bayonet, and Dusclops as Fortnite absolutely sweeps Phoebe. Fortnite. Now Glacia, usually one of the harder Elite Four members. We do have Shockwave and Thunderbolt on the team. Glalie goes down to a couple attacks after healing up. Now in comes our second Glalie, who lands a crunch on Starmie, which is not good as the Psychic type. Then we go to switch as we decide to go into Dollar. Dollar comes in, lands a nice Earthquake, runs down into the red, and one more takes care of the Glalie. Celio, which for some reason I don't know why she has a Celio, but it's level 50 and goes down to a crunch. In comes our second Celio, because I guess there just wasn't enough ice types to go around, which is fair. Just Glalie, two Glalie, two Celio, and a Wall Rain. Jelly gets frozen by a blizzard. I'm trying to break her out of the ice. Ultimately, it's just not happening. I really wish I had Wallace's Milotic luck, but we finally do break out, but with only 34 HP remaining, I have to think about what to do. Ultimately, I'm not really sure. I just decide that I'm going to stay in. Nope, I decide to switch out into Goat. Celio goes for the dive, you go for a Dragon Dance, and you go for a quick return, taking out the Celio. Now with +1 attack and speed, a couple returns should get the job done on the Wall Rain, but it doesn't, as we have to switch to Fortnite, who almost dies, and it does die as we lose our 4th team member. Rick comes in with a Shockwave, gets the job done, and now it's time for the 4th and final Elite Four member, Drake, who specializes in Dragon types. Ultimately, Ice Beam freezes Shelgon, we get a high roll the next time to kill. Flygon, dead. Another Flygon, dead. Altaria, dead. And last but not least, Salamence, dead. He has 4 guys that are 4 times weak to Ice Beam, and he gets obliterated by them. Nice break here in the Elite Four as we climb the stairs to take on Champion Steven. He leads up with a Skarmory. Couple Ice Beams, gets the job done. Down it goes. Only, I think it gets up a layer of spikes. But Claydol takes out Jelly. Rest in peace to the team MVP. Now it's time for Starmie. A Surf takes out 2 team members in a row. In comes Cradilly. And Starmie gets the crit Surf to get the win. Ice Beam and a Surf takes out Armaldo. But ultimately, he'll fall to the Metagross. In comes Goat. Gets off a Dragon Dance. And an Earthquake. It doesn't quite take down Metagross as a Hyper Beam does. Rip Goat. Ultimately, Rick comes in, hits the Surf. And yes, we have completed the Hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Sapphire. Ultimately, using Water types was kind of a cop-out, I guess you could say, considering the fact that Water is the most abundant type in all of Pokemon, and especially Hoenn, 7.8 out of 10, too much water. Literally the second half of the game takes place surfing across the ocean. But I felt we were able to get a diverse team, consisting of a lot of good secondary types, like Whiscash had Ground, Sharpedo had Dark, Pelipper and Gyarados had Flying, Starmie had Psychic, Lombre had Grass, Tentacruel had Poison. But I really want to thank you guys for watching. This was a fun challenge to do, and I'll see you guys in whatever comes next. Goodbye.